This is me in my former life as a two-time All-American cheerleader. This is my toe touch. I can't do that anymore. The need for precision in cheerleading is something that I think poetry also absolutely needs. See, for example, this is a herky, but it looks like I'm doing a split because I kick out and my herky is pretty precise. But if you look at that arm there, that is not precise. So that would be something in a poem that, like a word out of place, that I would work on again and again to fix. After my own success as a writer and more attention being paid to my work, I noticed that when people wrote about me, they'd often mention my backstory. And in the backstory, there was my mother. And when they mentioned my mother, they mentioned her often as an afterthought, as a footnote, as a murdered woman, a victim. This one is a picture of my mother after she finished her Master's of Social Work and was working at the Capitol Building in Atlanta. I love how happy and lovely she looks. So I decided that I needed to be the one to write about her, to tell the story of her tremendous strength and courage and her impact on me, on making me a writer. The title Memorial Drive holds for me both literal and figurative possibilities. It's literally the road on which my mother was killed, the road on which she died. It's also the road that leads to the nation's largest monument to the Confederacy, Stone Mountain, where you see the carvings of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis emblazoned even bigger than the carvings on Mount Rushmore. Figuratively, it is about my impulse and my entire project as a writer to remember and to memorialize. I tend to write about photographs a lot. They are often the object that I will go to as a kind of prompt to get me thinking about something. These were taken outside of my grandmother's house. My father in his baseball uniform and me in his cap. I came to writing to make sense of two existential wounds. One, this wound we've been talking about, the wound that never heals, losing my mother when I was 19. The other wound, my earlier wound, is a wound of history. The wounds of American racism, the wounds that I felt being born in Mississippi in 1966 when interracial marriage was still illegal, and I was rendered in the law of my home state illegitimate, persona non grata. I write to grapple with those two wounds. This is a place that I write down the kind of interstitial meta parts of Memorial Drive. And this one is one of those short pages about trying to start writing this memoir, to start writing about her. And I'm talking about the different ways that I write, how everything is so scattered. That section ends with me doing research about fire, how a car might catch on fire, and I wake up the next morning and my house burns. That's this passage is about. It took me about 7 years to write this book. It took so long because I wanted to get it right. I spent a very long time writing the first chapter of the book, which is mostly about my family, my mother's family in Mississippi, when my parents were still married, up until about when I was 6 years old. And I took so long because I didn't want to leave it. I didn't want to leave those years. It took me a long time to write the rest of it because I had to go to dark places that I'd been spending my whole adult life forgetting. I waited a long time before I looked at the police records. These are all of the police files that I was given back in 2005. In 2005, the police officer who had been the first on the scene the morning of my mother's murder stopped me because he recognized me and told me that after 20 years they purged the records and that he could rescue them for me. And he gave them to me and he said, with a bottle of wine, "You're going to need this." That was one of the hardest things for me to look at, but it's meant everything to me to at least have them. These are some of the transcripts of the phone conversations. I decided to make use of the transcripts in Memorial Drive because it would have been one thing for me to, as daughter, tell you how remarkable my mother was, how strong and determined and resilient she was, or I could let you see it in her own words. I wanted you, as a reader, to see who my mother was. I've written about this particular image many times, and in different ways. Sometimes I'm taking note of my mother's finger. It's so small you can barely see it, but it's the way that she's marking me or stilling me, because obviously I'm being a little impish and misbehaving because I'm not standing up straight. I love these pictures of us.